Hey guys, what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to discuss basically the introduction and the conclusion of an essay. I'm just going to basically show you the structure and the skeleton of what is a good introduction and what is a good conclusion. So, an essay really can't be complete without an introduction and conclusion. You have the body, which discusses the the arguments and all the examples and the stories that you're going to tell to back up what you have to say. But without an introduction or a conclusion, then you're not going to really finalize your essay. An introduction is a starter, is bringing people into the story, bringing people into the essay, making them really engaging them, making them want to know what you're going to talk about, and making them feel the necessity of reading this essay. If you don't do that, then you don't have an effective introduction. In terms of conclusion, the conclusion is leaving them with something to think about, making them feel the completeness of your essay. And if you didn't do that, then you don't have a good conclusion. Your introduction contains your thesis, so you always have to remember that whenever you do an introduction, it has to have the thesis statement in there embedded. A lot of students make this mistake. Sometimes they put the thesis statement in a separate paragraph, or they don't put the thesis statement in the introduction. You need to put the complete thesis statement inside the conclusion inside the introduction, and it goes at the end of the introduction. So you start introducing your topic, and at the end of the introduction, you place your thesis statement that automatically leads them into the next paragraph. The introduction discusses the central idea. So whatever it is you're talking about, you really want to start introducing the reader to the main idea, the central idea, whatever it is you're going to be discussing. You have to assume that the person coming into your essay doesn't know anything about your essay or doesn't know anything about your topic. So you have to introduce it in a manner that really brings them into the essay completely without them having to have any background knowledge about your essay. You can't assume that they know about politics or they know about the economy and they understand you have to lead them in to the point that they can come in knowing nothing, and your introduction will lead them into your essay. The introduction gets the reader interested. If you can't grab your reader's attention or you can't get them interested, then nobody's going to read your essay, and you can imagine how people who are going to judge or grade your essay will feel as well. So you need to write in a way that grabs their interest. And it's your essay, so if you can't get them interested in your essay, who is going to get them interested? Nobody can get them interested but you, the writer. So you need to find a way to get them interested. And if you're not interested in what you're writing about, change the thesis, change the topic. Don't write about it. Write about something you're interested in. The introduction presents the idea completely. It introduces the reader to the idea, presents it to them. So whereas your thesis is going to is going to make your point, and your body of the essay is going to prove the point, the introduction presents the idea to the reader as a whole, leads them into the idea. A great way to have, there are some standards in terms of having a good introduction. You don't have to follow them to the T, but if you're beginning, these are good tools to stick by, which will enhance your introduction. One of the great ways to start an introduction is with a really strong question, a critical thinking question. Make them wonder, make them think, get them interested. Using a quote, using a famous quote, and having them think about that quote, as long as that quote relates to your thesis, that's excellent. So looking for things people have said, things presidents have said, things great leaders have said, some thought-provoking quote that can relate to your essay. Starting off with a story, a personal story, or a story you've heard about, or a story that you've experienced yourself, that's a great way. Stories always work well. People relate to stories and make an impact somehow. People just seem to just write an introduction and don't know what to do. Hey, the introduction is your chance to really make an impact. A lot of times students write what they think is the essay, and a lot of it really ends up being what should be in the introduction. The introduction is like a free, is where you are sort of free to sort of, elaborate and expand, and be a little free with your writing, whereas the body is more concise and to the T in terms of your the points and arguments you want to make. They're very concise, but the introduction, you're more free to expose the reader to the various things about your essay. So use that to your advantage. Again, you end your introduction with the thesis. So that's your thesis statement. That's how you're going to end your introduction. So you don't start with it, but you end with it. Your conclusion, again, drives the reader home. It drives all the points home. It sort of re-summarizes everything that you've said in the conclusion, and it leaves the reader with a sense of unity and completeness. It reiterates everything that you've discussed. And you end with a call to action. You end with making the reader think. You end with asking them to do something, with asking them a question. Asking them a thought-provoking question that makes them think again. It puts everything in their head about everything that you've discussed. It brings it back in their head and leaves them wondering and thinking. Make a final point. Stand firm. Make a final point. Put everything together and make that final point that you want to say that will lead the reader to conclude, to form a valid conclusion about everything that you've just said. Another great way is ending with a question when you want to do your conclusion. Ending with a strong critical thinking question, leaving the reader wondering, leaving the reader thinking. That's another great way to end your conclusion. People think that might seem odd, but there's nothing really wrong with that. That's an excellent way to end an essay because it has the reader, it leaves them thinking and wondering about something new. Oh, so this is something that doesn't relate here, but I hope that concluded your introduction and conclusion. I'll go back. So basically, to reiterate, the introduction leads the reader. I'm going to go back to slide 1. The introduction leads the reader into the essay. The conclusion ends everything and gives the reader a sense of unity and a sense of completeness and a sense of wondering about your thesis again and thinking about implementing it in their lives. The introduction, remember that your introduction needs to be it needs to introduce the topic in a way that doesn't require the reader to know much about your topic. You can't expect the reader to understand all the ins and outs of the things that you're going to discuss, like politics, and if they have to know things that your average person doesn't know about, but since you're the expert, you do, then you need to bring them in to that, to all those facts and all those statistics in the introduction. Lead them into that. All right, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime. But the introduction and conclusion, they're people, you don't neglect them. They're one of the most powerful things beside your thesis you can do to enhance your essay, because people don't get into the essay without looking at the introduction. The introduction really is what engages the reader. And if you fail at the introduction, people are just going to automatically sort of negate the body of your essay. It's almost like a first impression, and the conclusion is the last impression. So without those, even if your thesis is really good, people are really gonna neglect the body of your essay.